tonight. We really appreciate you supporting not just student theater, but also student written theater. It means a lot to us. Just a few announcements before we begin. At this time, if you can turn off your sound on your phone so that it makes no sound, just turn those ringers off. In addition to that, if you could keep your mask on over your nose and under your chin during the duration of the show. If we see you without your mask on, you will be asked to leave the room and you will not be allowed back in. And lastly, no flash during this performance, so if you take any photos or videos, just don't use flash. But besides that, here is your director, Liz, to tell you a bit more about the show.
Hi! Oh my goodness, this is so much fun. I'm Liz, I'm the director and the writer of this show. This is Khalil, my assistant director, as well as my partner. This show has been incredible. Thank you all for coming out on a Friday night. So a couple of things. This show does contain some sensitive topics, sensitive sexual topics, the depiction of drug use, that sort of thing. This has been a really, really fun time, and I really hope that you guys enjoy. So this is the process.
Good to see you. I know it's been a while, but now felt like the best time to come in. Maybe not. I know a lot of people are getting sick, and they may need some, help with that. If I'm being honest, I'm not exactly sure why I decided to come in. I tend to overthink and get in my head a lot, and I could move past things so quickly I leave matters unattended in my own head. Does that make any sense? I'm very happy. Trust me, I am. It's more so just understanding, holy shit, did what happened actually happen? And are these people really that demented? And was he really that demented? I don't know where to start. Maybe The Day I Came Home. A long title that leaves little to the imagination, but that's what we'll call it, even now. Myself, Jamie, and my mother. It's still a rough thing to talk about, especially with my mother. Sometimes I think everything that happened affects her more than it does us at this point. Can I start with something else and then maybe work up to that day? I know I need to get to that. It's still etched through the walls in my brain, and I know I need to. How about this? The day we met. It was 3 years ago on Halloween night. My friends and I, that's also not the best either. Long story short on that, we fucked the day we met. It was pretty good, but I was also really fucking drunk. Another night, I'd gone over to my friend's apartment, and the semester had been so busy, it was finally one of those nights we could just chill, you know? And we'd been messaging since we'd met each other, but out of nowhere he stopped answering. But again, I didn't think anything was gonna come of it, so I thought, whatever, and kept drinking. Within an hour, he was outside of her gate with tears in his eyes. He had gotten into an argument with his stepfather about something so menial, it was stupid. But I could see how affected he was from it. So I swayed with him in my arms until the tears dried up. That was 3 days after we met. 3 days after he was just some guy in a shitty costume that I fucked in someone else's bed, and here he was, confiding into me his family problems, melting into me, and sobbing. Red flag? I didn't think it was at the time. It was so easy for him to choose me as his savior for the night. Stepdaddy became a common issue. Like, a lot. He was this short stick of a man from the Dominican Republic, and the man could drink, let me tell you. And it was a lot, all the time. The one Christmas I'd spent with his family, you could smell the coquito off him as soon as you walked through the door. And now, I love some coquito myself, but I tried the one stepdad made, and oof. That shit was practically straight liquor with a fairy dust of cinnamon. He spent the entire night in the dining room, chiming in with his big mouth whenever possible. His 2 daughters were there, his actual kids. And the way this man looked at this boy, you know, he tried gatekeeping, having alcoholic parents. To me, whose first memory of living was seeing my drunken sperm donor arguing with my mother while walking out the door, and who was the caretaker of my insecure and depressed friend who was also following in the footsteps of their daddy. All because I brought up the night he showed up to my friend's house, and another night where he was on the phone with his stepdaddy screeching. All because he took a second too long in the bathroom. Love and hate that sound. Maybe I could see you another day this week. If you have time. If not, that's okay too, but I figured I would ask. Just in case. You know where to reach me.
God damn it. Why do I gotta forget shit when I'm this fucked up? Oh my god. She looks just like a dream, the prettiest girl I ever seen. Oh my god, damn right I am. Oh my god. Okay. Ew, never mind. I'm coming.
I'm glad everything went well, Bubby. I'm just saying you don't gotta be seeing him if you don't want to. I'm always here. Just wanted to say I'm heading to bed, so I'll call you in the morning, pretty girl. I love you.
Yeah, I think it'll be good for me, you know? I just like talking, and I don't want to keep saying the same shit to you. Don't worry, Bubby. I love you more. For some reason, my mind goes existential every damn time I smoke flower now. Like, what happened before the Big Bang? We literally just don't know. That's why I'm not exactly opposed to any ideas of aliens or religion. Not religion, but the power of the universe. Humans created all of this shit, like money and clicks. And oh my god, don't get me started on capitalism. The money and stereotypes and like, why do we even gotta be racist when it is the 21st century? How did we even get to this point? White men. That's how. But why are humans the one species in this entire solar system to have nitpicked everything down to the littlest detail when you really think about how small of creatures human beings are and how humongous the universe is. I wish I was smart enough to be an astronaut or one of those robotic scientists that build those fancy telescopes that can have us see millions of miles and light years away. I feel like if we all went to space just once and saw the Earth floating behind us and the great blackness that is us in space, we really wouldn't give a shit about anything we've created anymore. But here I am, one of the billions of humans on this planet, going to an office to talk about one of the billions of males I've encountered, to talk about his shit. The shit he would call a life, the shit he would do, all of it. I think I need to take up writing again. It's the only way I know how to be romantic. Beautiful poetry and beautiful language can just be burned out of my gut. And when you think about how useless human beings are and how humongous the universe is, it all feels kind of insignificant when you really think about it. But then again, it doesn't feel that insignificant. So now, as I stumble along to talk to some lady, blah, 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 blah.
Okay, do you remember where we left off? Yeah, right. Okay, cool. So the really scary thing about this guy was the fact that he defended his stepfather and his drinking. He actually sounded threatening to me that night. Don't ever bring that up again. Like, I'm sorry. Are you defending this abusive piece of shit? He didn't birth this guy, and he certainly wasn't the one raising him his whole life. I didn't even mention to him the way his stepdaddy looked at him. Like he was an annoyance. He was so oblivious to it. And while he was defending him, we were following in his footsteps. For the last 5 months, every day we were drinking at this shitty little fraternity house on 5th between Stoker and Elisabetta. It was kept in disgusting conditions, but that didn't stop us from drinking our asses off every night, throwing our bodies everywhere, breaking and making shit fall without a care in the world. That's the only reason it became so normal for me to be at that house so often. Everybody thought I was there because alcohol was readily available. They had no idea. They were all wrapped up in this weird hierarchy of this frat, thinking they were so important when they were really all just losers. And look, I don't mean to be mean, but do I care? They were all little boys in high school that never got any attention, and losers in college that thought they were hot shit because sometimes girls would want to fuck them. I mean, even just me being around them brought their small egos up a little too high. He started showing me off as if I was some sort of collectible comic. One night, when we were all in a good mood and drinking, he showed off my nudes. Every guy in that house either wanted to fuck me or couldn't help but be jealous of him for getting a girl like me. But you see, the thing that got me about the girl back then is that I'd already gotten with another one of them. Disappointingly enough. And again, another drunken night where I can barely remember anything. Either way, he thrived off that. But joke's on him. He had a little pee-wee dysfunction, and he couldn't get it up when he lost his virginity. How did I feel? I've known since I'd met this group how they were. I was a lot prettier than most of the girls they were used to being around, so they all kind of saw me as if I was some kind of like goddess. But more than anything, it grossed me out. Another night, when we were all crossed out of our minds, so much liquor in our system passing this big bong around, somehow I ended up on all fours on the president's bed, with everyone taking turns smacking my ass. I was fully clothed, but we were just so fucked up. And he just stood there and laughed. He even made a comment on how since my best friend was there and we were practically like sisters, her boobs and my boobs were his property. Nobody else heard him say that. They were all too busy trying to hide their boners at the fact that they even got to touch me, and she was too fucked up to notice, but I just stared. And I still stayed. How fucked up is that? Well, I stayed for him. And slowly in January of that year, my reason for staying switched gears entirely. At that point, I was already on the move with mourning the relationship in silence. I no longer wanted to be around these friends that I knew through him, because of him. But none of it mattered when I met Jamie. I stayed for Jamie. He was a childhood friend of his that was going through a rough patch in his life. His ex-girlfriend was a real piece of work and his parents were absent and neglectful. And so he moved into the frat house. That was in November, Black Friday. He was this tall guy, Puerto Rican but looked black. He kept his face clean because he worked as a bodyguard for this nightclub, and as soon as he moved in, it was a crazy chain reaction. All of the guys in the house were white, and my man was a Peruvian who passed as white, and he acted as such. He never wanted to be himself. He would just assimilate to those around him to keep this facade up. I started recognizing that everyone was kind of annoyed and slightly confused with my being there when they were all sober. He never told them. And Jamie and I started getting ostracized by those fuckers. Thinking about what I allowed to happen back then makes me want to skin my own face off. They all started making all these kinds of jokes towards Jamie, telling him to join them, and even gave him the nickname, Token. Like token black friend, and while it could have been a funny, harmless joke, it was constant. And so we didn't want to be around them sober. And Jamie and I started smoking weed together. And that's how it all started. Jamie quickly became one of the only people in the world I felt like I could truly trust. And I became that for him. One night, while my best friend and man were having some stupid, bickering political argument in the kitchen, Jamie and I had gone outside to smoke some cigarettes. And I was just plainly talking about the events of my relationship for the first time ever. And he just stood there in awe that his supposed best friend would do that to a girl. He'd known him since he was in grade school, and he figured since he's almost in his 20s, he'd grow out of it. But the more I spoke, the more disgusted he looked with him. It was the first time I had spoke about my relationship with someone and they understood from my perspective and saw how fucked everything was becoming. And as I looked at Jamie in the moonlight, I became captured by him. That was the first time I felt like I wanted him to kiss me. Man, I feel like you would have liked the next part. I know all of this may seem weird or exaggerated, but I can promise it's 100% the truth. I don't know why I would say that. I guess I'm just used to people taking the things I have to say the wrong way. I don't even know if that makes sense. I don't know if I told you this. His name is Uriel. Like the archangel. Ironic, ain't it? It's the full truth. I don't know, lady. I'm just making sure you're keeping up, guy. Don't be on my ass like that. I love high art. I never thought of myself to be an artsy-fartsy person, but when I'm feeling uninspired to write, I like making these little mosh-posh canvas pieces. I know, Picasso. I should make one for Jamie. Our anniversary's coming up. Speaking of, oh, pizza. Ugh. Why you gotta be quarantining instead of getting this body, you sexy thing? Quarantine. Oh, quarantine. You make me want to jump off a bridge and die. That's another thing. That just grinds my shit to meat brains. Why is it that people feel the need to make human rights and health-related things political? If we're so fucking political, why doesn't anyone talk about the fact that George Washington himself said the two-party system was a bad fucking idea? I mean, he did make his dentures out of slaves' teeth, so I feel like he's not the best person to be taking advice from. You get the idea. Quarantine and this shit of this and that really just was not the right setting for everything that's happened. Hey babe, I'm feeling anxious. I know. I miss you, and I just need some reassurance. Well, why don't you trust me? There's no need to make it seem so bad. It's the first time we've been in a pandemic, and we just got back together a week before this, when you were hooking up with another girl, while I was asleep. Can't we just move past that? Okay. Hey babe, I'm having a really bad, anxious night. Can you just reassure me? Well, what about you and this Rick guy, huh? Can I just have another second or something? God! I'm coming. Yes. I got high last night and fell asleep in the same clothes. Don't judge me. We don't gotta talk about it. It was months after the pandemic started. Mom always said we were witches. When our gut instinct went off, it wasn't to be ignored. And from March on, I would get this sinking feeling in my stomach every time night would fall, like clockwork. he'd FaceTime me, and every time I'd be having a panic episode, he'd brush it off or dumb it down or... In June, I got my first job waitressing. I met this guy named Rick, and he trained me for the dinner shift. Immediately, we clicked. Nothing romantic, but I could see he saw me as attractive. "You smoke American Spirit?" We went out back, and he asked if I was seeing anyone. I said no. I knew Uriel was cheating on me every time he'd see her. I would be alone in my room, I would feel it, and would break down. After work, he would call me an hour and a half, and on the nights he wasn't seeing her, he'd call me right away. The day I told him I knew he was seeing her, he claimed they didn't fuck, but I knew him, and I knew it happened. He fucked her on my birthday, while I was sobbing at the fact that I couldn't see him. And so when Rick asked if I was seeing anyone, my instinct was to say no. That night, after our dinner shift, Rick took me to see this cliff view of the town, and it was a small town, so mainly just black across the landscape. But for the first time in months, I felt like I was bonding with someone. I was a human again. I was a person. He kissed me first, and I didn't pull back. He was smaller than me, and his lips felt like so thin against mine, but the night we slept together, I disassociated so heavily. I didn't come back until I was already on the car ride home, and I just remember crying and screaming, "What did I do? What did I just do?" And I immediately felt like the scum of the earth. It was the only time I was ever with him. That was 2 months before I found out about him and this skank. She knew about me too. Blocked me on social media because she knew we were together. And as he was on his hands and knees begging me not to dump his pansy ass, I just laughed in his face. Because for the first time in months, I felt validated. I didn't feel like this crazy, clingy girlfriend he made me out to be all of those months while I was locked up in my house. I laughed so hard, I felt my eyes trying to fling themselves out of their sockets. My entire body shook with relief and anger and every emotion possible, and I asked him, "Did you think of me even once? Did you cry on your way home?" He said no. He didn't think of me. He sat there, called me his best friend, called me the love of his life, when in reality, he was just this skinny shell of a boy that never once knew what the word love meant. And instead of acknowledging that his mama was too stuck on being the perfect traditional Dominican definition of a wife that was only there to please her husband, instead of admitting that his stepfather was an abusive son of a bitch, instead of realizing his insecurities and getting the help that he so desperately needed, he used me to make himself feel better. The small boy that will never grow up to be a man, how sad is that? You know, I found out he kept nudes from high school 6 years ago of girls that were 15 and 16. He's 22. And he couldn't let go of this idea that getting his dick wet meant he was a man. But he was never a man. This small shit used me to try and make himself feel bigger. And when the pandemic started, he decided waiting for me wasn't an option. He never truly knew me, and he never never cared to know me because having me was just proving to everybody else that he's this big hotshot of a guy. Why do these insecure men feel the need to hurt women like me? Why choose women that had everything and tear them down to nothing so then we cling on to you like some kind of fucking parasite? Oh, but then you'll get mad at us, scream at us of what you yourself had done. I slept with Rick because you gave me the idea for it. Oh my God. I slept with Rick to not go crazy, to survive, because you were taking and taking from me. You were never a man. You were a child. And I didn't deserve to be a caretaker when I was 19. I deserved those years to grow. I deserved to find my career, to study during the week and get drunk on the weekends. I deserved to not have to come home and worry about whether or not you were going to give me some kind of fucking disease because the idea of you fucking with a condom annoyed you. So you fucked her in your shit car with that one because you wanted to feel like a man, but you were never a man. You can never be a man. A man doesn't treat a woman that he claims to care about like that. A man doesn't refuse therapy because therapy is for weak people. You're the weak one. You couldn't imagine helping yourself out for once instead of relying on the opinions of others. I sat there in front of you and I broke to pieces and you didn't care. I was withering away in your home all of those months because I was trying to make a relationship work. But a relationship takes two people and you were a child. Your mother couldn't help you, so you wanted me to be one. Why would you do that to me when all I wanted was a future and at some point I wanted that with you? You refused to even understand. I was ready to kill myself every time you leave that disgusting fucking house because I didn't know who I was anymore. But I wanted you to walk in and see my body lying on the ground and understand everything you put me through. Who gave you the right to do that to me? I felt like a bad person for such a long time. I felt like I was just as bad as him because I also ran into the arms of another, but it was survival. I needed to be seen. When my affair with Jamie started at the end of January, it was the first time I truly felt like a woman again. The way he caressed me. The way he looked into my eyes, looked into my very soul, and just knew. The night we were together is more than the best friends we've become. He was on top of me, close to my body, and I could feel how warm he was. And I could smell his cologne as it wafted through my nose. And I felt his nervous chest struggling not to collapse down onto me, and I pushed him up. Look at me when you make love to me. And he did. And he does. Every single time. For the first time in a long time, I remember what it felt like to be in love. And to have someone in love with me back. The day I came home, I remember taking Jamie to the lake at the end of my block. It was so bright out that day, and I could feel the cool spring breeze as it pressed against our cheeks. And Jamie looked so happy, and I felt so light. I remember wanting to stay there until the moon came out, but we went to my mother's. And as we pulled into the driveway with my bags and belongings in the back of my car, I could see how relieved she was. She had the brightest smile that day. I remember my mother telling me, meeting Jamie was the moment she knew she liked him. The way he hugged me, I had to let go first. She never liked Uriel, and he knew it. That's why we were always at that nasty house. But with Jamie, it immediately felt like he belonged. We ended up telling her everything that had happened in my relationship with Uriel. How I actually met Jamie and the months-long affair we had. The day I finally left Uriel. And I remember waiting for her to feel so disappointed in me. You're not a bad person, Ariana. You felt you did what you needed to do to get yourself out of there. We hugged and we cried together. Nowadays, we're closer than ever. She loves Jamie and treats him like her own. I could never bring myself to tell her the full extent of my relationship with Uriel, but like I said, she always said we were witches, and she knew something was going on with my life over there. I just couldn't tell her. It kills her even now to know what I put myself through. To be so low, only to come out of it with a stronger family and a fiance that adores me, was something I could have never dreamt about. And now it's my reality. Those 2.5 years of my life I will never get back. And I wanted to thank you for listening for this week. It's been over a year since I've left that place in Uriel. It feels like a movie I saw once and never saw again. I know I could have done things differently, but overall I think I needed an outsider to listen. To not feel so crazy, you know? Some things are so strong that they stay with you for who knows how long. But I'm sure you knew that already.
How do you feel after all that? What did she have to say?
It doesn't matter now. I feel